Hello everyone, I welcome you all again in this lecture series on transportation engineering. This is lecture number 24, and from this lecture we are going to start the pavement design. In this particular lecture, we are going to talk about the design of flexible pavement. The guidelines which we are going to follow are from IRC 37. IRC 37 is the code which provides you the comprehensive design approach about the flexible pavement. And this is what we are going to follow. I'll try to give you the complete diagram or complete image how we design a flexible pavement. So let us start with the discussion of pavement itself. What is a pavement? Pavement is a structure which consists of superimposed layers. Superimposed means layer one above another of processed materials. There may be different materials like your processed soil, processed aggregates, aggregates with some binder above the natural soil subgrade. Ultimately, all these layers are placed over the subgrade, the natural soil, whose primary function is to distribute the applied vehicular load to the subgrade. Whatever load is applied here, the area of application of load is very small at the surface, but as it gets distributed, the area of application or load application increases. This will reduce the applied stress on the soil. So this is what we want. If you think about riding a vehicle in sand or in soil, you will feel that while you are driving, many times the wheel will stuck into the soil because the bearing capacity of your soil is not that much so that it can take the load or the stress which is applicable here. But if we distribute this stress onto a larger area, the bearing capacity will definitely resist or will be able to take up this stress. So here the pavements are classified as flexible or rigid pavement. We've already seen the basic difference between the flexible and rigid pavement. Now let us start the comprehensive understanding about these pavements. First, we'll talk about flexible pavement in this lecture, and in coming lecture, we'll talk about the rigid pavement. The flexible pavement as a whole has a low or negligible flexural strength. Flexural means pertaining to bending. Means these pavements does not restrict or does not support bending unless the load transfer occurs, and the occurrence of load transfer is through particle to particle load distribution. So that's why this is known as a flexible pavement, because the load transfer is through particle to particle or grain to grain distribution. The flexible pavement has these many layers. There may be some layers which can be omitted in a design or some layers which can be added in this design. But generally, the layers are classified in these terms. So let us one by one see the name of the layer and then we'll discuss what this layer is used for. First layer is your seal coat. Now see where the seal coat is applied. Seal coat is applied on the surface, on the topmost surface. What is this? This is a layer of bitumen. This is a layer of bitumen without any aggregate. This layer is applied to make the surface waterproof. What we want bitumen to fill the voids so that water does not only on the surface, so that water does not percolate through the surface. As we know, if water percolates through the surface to the subgrade, it will reduce the bearing capacity of the soil. So we want the surface to be waterproof, and it provides skid resistance. So it is the topmost layer, seal coat, which is the name itself suggests it tries to seal the voids. Then we have this layer of surface course. Okay, let us first read about the coats. Coat means application of a layer, a very thin layer. A coat of paint means application of paint on the surface. The same way we are applying bitumen on different surfaces. So seal coat is the topmost surface of your bitumen. Then tack coat. Tack means connecting using very light connection. When we weld, we provide tacks first, then we weld. We see if the arrangement is good. In order to apply a temporary fix, we apply tacks. So tack coat is also working as a connecting layer here. What does it do? It connects your binder course with your surface course. This layer is applied between the binder course and your surface course. So the tack coat is a very light application of asphalt emulsion diluted with water, and it provides bonding. The most important thing, it provides bonding between the two layers of binders. Then we have this prime coat. Prime word itself suggests it is the first coat. First coat of bitumen. First application of bitumen. Till the base course we are not using bitumen, but above the base course we will spread a layer of bitumen in order to connect, have a good bonding between the base course and the binder course. So the prime coat is the first coat which is applied on a non-bituminous layer to connect this non-bituminous layer to the bituminous layer. So these are the three coats. Prime coat is the application of low viscous cutback bitumen to an absorbent surface like granular base or on which the binder layer is placed and provides bonding between the two layers. So all the three coats provide something. Seal coat provide you waterproofing. Tack coat provide you bonding between the surface course and the binder course. The prime coat provides you the bonding between binder course and base course. Now let us see these different courses or the layers. The topmost layer is known as surface course. The thickness is around 25 to 50 mm. As the thickness is very less, it will not take any load. It is just a surface layer which provides a better riding quality. So the surface course is a layer in direct contact with the traffic and are constructed with a dense graded asphalt. With a dense graded asphalt in order to give you waterproofing. That is applied with seal coat so that there is no water percolation. Then there is binder course. Surface course only for riding quality. There is no structural support from surface course, but this binder course has comparatively less quality, but because of its thickness and its application, it provides you a surface or a structural support. Binder course has a purpose of load distribution to the base course, and it requires less quality of mix as compared to the surface course. So this works as a structural layer. Similarly, these base course and sub-base course, these are also structural layers which provide support to the pavement. It distributes the load coming from the above, like base course distributes the load coming from binder course. The sub-base course distributes the load coming from base course. These layers may be untreated granulars or they may be cement treated granulars. Means aggregates are provided with treatment of cement in order to provide a proper strength, or they may be untreated aggregates. So the base course provide additional load distribution as well as it helps in subsurface drainage. Similarly, the subbase course does the same work. It provides structural support, improves the drainage, and it also restricts the movement of your fine soil, fine sand from subgrade in the pavement structure. There may be upward movement of water. With that water, there may be intrusion of your fines into the layers. And finally, the subgrade, the lowermost part. It may be the treated subgrade or a natural layer which ultimately receives all the stress from the above layers. So this is the composition of your flexible pavement. So whenever you are asked to draw a cross section of flexible pavement, you can use this cross section and you can explain it. Now, what are the factors which affect the pavement design? As we know, the wheel load, the main concern is to distribute the wheel load. So design wheel load is the main concern, main factor. It includes maximum wheel load, your axle configuration, your contact pressure, ESWL. This is equivalent single wheel load. We will talk about it. Then repetitions of load means number of repetitions of the vehicle. Then there are some climatic factors like temperature. Then we may see some pavement component material which affects the pavement design. There may be different layers, different kind of materials which can affect the design. All these things are incorporated in IRC 37 itself. So let us discuss about maximum wheel load. Maximum wheel load is used to determine the depth of pavement required to ensure that subgrade soil does not fail. As we know, the load distribution should be such that at lowermost layer, the final load distribution should be less than the bearing capacity. So we'll try to keep the depth in check in order to have a proper load distribution. The contact pressure, we know that there is a contact between the wheel and the surface. Through this contact, the pressure or the load from the vehicle is transferred to the layer. The contact area is generally elliptical, but for flexible pavement, it is designed to be circular with a radius A, with a radius value A. For, you can remember this thing, for flexible pavement, the contact area is assumed to be circular, and for rigid pavement, the contact area is assumed to be kind of combination of a rectangle and two semicircles. This kind of combination is assumed for rigid and for circular. The radius of the circular contact area can be calculated using this relation where your capital P is the wheel load, the P is contact pressure, and pi, as you all know. The contact pressure value is generally taken as 0.56 MPa. Generally, the tire pressure and contact pressure are equal. What is tire pressure? It is the pressure exerted by the inflated tire on its wall. So the ratio of this tire pressure and contact pressure is generally equals to 1. Now let us see the axle configuration. Axle configuration, if I make a axle here, you'll be able to see these are the two wheels and this is one axle. This is the top view. This arrangement is known as single axle, single wheel. Single wheel. So this is the first combination. Most of the front axles are single axle, single wheel arrangement. Now, the rear axles have most of the rear axle except your low commercial vehicles, your light commercial vehicles. The heavy commercial vehicles will have this kind of arrangement for their rear axles. So this is known as single axle dual wheel. Now, if these are provided nearby, the rear axles are provided, you have already seen this kind of arrangement. This is known as tandem axle. And this is tridem axle. So these are the axle configuration. We will see how these axle configuration are useful or how these configurations impact our load design. So here the maximum legal axle load is 80 kilonewton. We have already seen what axle is. Whenever two tires are connected, this forms a axle. So the maximum axle load is legal axle load is 80 kilonewton. If we see for each wheel is 40 kilonewton. But when the load which is coming from the vehicle, or if the vehicle is carrying extra load, if this load is exceeding the 40 kilonewton, what can be done? You can use this arrangement which is known as dual wheel arrangement. This arrangement can be used if load is exceeding. Now, in order to study the load distribution below the layer or in below layers, we cannot just add up the load because of these two values, because as these loads are or these tire are not far apart, there will be interaction or intersection between their distribution curves. Let us see this. Let us say this is your surface. There are two tires. They are arranged here. Now, the distance between center to center is, let us say, S value. The radius is A. The inner distance, let us call this as T. If we see the load distribution, we assume a 45-degree distribution. Let us make this load distribution graph. Similarly, for this wheel, we will have load distribution. This is also 45 degree. Now you can see that at a particular level, or do it. At this particular level, the load distribution graphs are intersecting. Above these, they behave like individual loads, but after this intersection, this is a combination. And this cannot be simply attained by adding up the load on these two vehicles. So we have to create a scenario which gives you a condition where this effect, what we are getting, is equivalent to a single wheel load. So we are going to design a scenario in which this combination between the two wheels act as a single wheel. This occurs at a depth of d by 2. What is the clear distance between these two wheels? The depth at which the deepest point at which we want to calculate is 2s. Depth equivalent to 2s value. So for this combination, we may draw a graph between depth and load. This is in log terms, and here you have load in. So for a depth of log 10 d by 2, which is this depth, initial depth, the load which we found was log times 10 times. Then at depth of log 10 times 2s, we'll find a load equivalent to twice of p. So if we want to calculate this load at any other depth between these two values, we may use the slope of this curve. So we know that to calculate slope, we may write it as log 10 2p minus log 10p divided by log 10 d by 2 minus, sorry, not d by 2, this is twice of s, minus log 10 d by 2. Now at any depth, for any depth z, if you want to calculate the load pz, we can write this equation as the slope pz minus np divided by log 10 at any depth z minus log 10 d by 2. Here in this equation only one term is unknown, that is pz, which we want to calculate. So this is how you can calculate the value. There may be a very small question from this topic to calculate ESWL. ESWL means equivalent single wheel load at any depth x. Means the load because of the combination of two tires at any depth z in terms of equivalent single wheel load. So this is what equivalent single wheel load is. Now the design procedure which we follow may be an empirical design, may be a mechanistic empirical design, or a completely mechanistic design. But as per IRC, we use a mechanistic empirical design approach. We calculate the number of vehicles using the traffic data, distribution values, number of lanes which we are going to make, and compare it with the empirical values for the failure criteria of fatigue and rutting. If these values, the number of vehicle for the design life is less than this fatigue value or rutting value, then the design is safe. Means we can go ahead with the design. But if the number of vehicle for fatigue and rutting is coming out to be less than number of vehicle on the design traffic, then we have to revamp the design. So this is the overview of the design which we are going to see here. Now let us see the design through IRC 37. The recommendation provided by IRC 37 gives the cumulative number of standard axle to be carried by the pavement during the design life. So what we want to calculate how many standard axle. Standard axle means the axle having a load of 80 kilonewton. So we will calculate how many standard axle will run on this pavement for its design life. First of all, we'll calculate the design number of standard vehicle. let us say T. Okay, this will be in terms of million standard Excel. There will not be one vehicle or two vehicle or 1,000 vehicles. There will be tens of lakhs of vehicle which will run through the pavement in its design life. So this value will be calculated in terms of MSA, million standard Excel. And the vehicle which we are considered about are only the commercial vehicle. हमें जिनका ध्यान रखना है वो सिर्फ commercial vehicle. The number of commercial vehicles which are running on the pavement, and the commercial vehicle which are having a gross मतलब जो total weight है उस vehicle का should be more than 30 kilonewton. Now their axles are studied for the purpose of design of this pavement. हमें क्या करना है 24 hours का 7 दिन 24 आवर का काउंट लेना है, फिर उसको हमने देखा है कुछ एक्सपेंशन फैक्टर्स है जिनसे मल्टीप्लाई करके एएडीटी में कन्वर्ट कर सकते हैं. तो दिस शुड बी डन एज पर IRC 9. दिस इज द ट्रैफिक सेंसस फॉर नॉन अर्बन रोड्स. सड़क के ऊपर किस तरह से हम ट्रैफिक को काउंट करें, उसका जो प्रोसीजर है वो IRC 9 में दिया हुआ है. तो हमें IRC 9 के प्रोसीजर को फॉलो करते हुए 7 डे काउंट निकालना है, फिर उसको हम कन्वर्ट करेंगे अपने नंबर ऑफ व्हीकल्स में. नाउ अनदर फैक्टर इज ग्रोथ रेट. लेट अस से टुडे on this date I have calculated number of vehicles as A or number of vehicles as N. बट हमारा डिजाइन लाइफ जब स्टार्ट होगा we should put the value of we are designing up till 15 years. So with the today's calculation we have to predict the traffic after 15 years. So what we can do, we can increase the number of vehicle at a rate, and this rate is taken as traffic growth rate. The number of vehicles increasing in the design life is given by this rate. So the past trend of the traffic gives you this rate. If it is not available for commercial vehicle, you can take this rate as 5%. If it is less than 5% also, you can take this value as 5%. This is provided by IRC Special Provision 84. So the R value, the rate with which this traffic value or the traffic count will change through its design life, can be taken as 5%. If it is given more than 5%, then it is well enough, but 5% is the provided value. Then design life. Design life is defined in terms of cumulative number of standard Excel in million standard Excels. Cumulative means today there were 100 vehicles, tomorrow there were 200 vehicles, third day there were 250 vehicles. So for after third day, the cumulative number of vehicles which are passing through the pavement is 100 plus 200 plus 250. This is how up till the design life the number of vehicles in terms of standard Excel is calculated. It is written as MSA because the number of vehicles will be too high. It will be in tens of lakhs. That's why it is calculated in terms of MSA, million standard Excel. That can be carried before any major strengthening or rehabilitation or capacity augmentation of the pavement. Means whatever design traffic up till the number of design traffic we reach, we don't need any rehabilitation of this pavement. So this is your design life, and it is assumed that this much traffic range is achieved in a duration of 10 to 15 years. There may be a major land use change which may accelerate the number of vehicles running on the road or the commercial vehicles running on the road. So this design period may change, but the design period is given, or the design life is given on the basis of number of cumulative standard Excel running on the road. Another important factor is vehicle damage factor. Vehicle damage factor means now we have different Excel combinations we have seen. Each Excel combination will not be equal to your standard Excel. It may have higher impact because we consider the 80 kilonewton vehicle or 80 kilonewton Excel as your standard Excel or as a unit. So we will calculate if a commercial vehicle is having number of Excels with different combinations. So how many standard Excel will it have? So we will convert the different Excels into the standard Excels, into the unit, and then we'll add up these values in order to find out cumulative standard Excels. So vehicle damage factor is a multiplier to convert the number of commercial vehicle of different Excel loads and Excel configurations into the number of repetitions of standard Excel load of magnitude 80 kilonewton. Now, as we know, there may be different combinations. There may be combination of single axle, dual wheel on either side, or we can take it as single axle, single wheel on either side. We may have single wheel, or sorry, single axle, dual wheels on either side. There may be a tandem axle, dual wheels on either side. There will be a tridem axle with dual wheel on either side. So, in order to convert it, we will use this relation. Let us say your single axle is your vehicle is having, let us take an example. This is your vehicle. The front wheels are your single axle, single wheel on both sides. These are your tridem axle with dual wheel on both sides, and this is your again same tridem axle with dual wheel on both sides. So if you see tridem axle, we have the load as load on axle divided by 224 raised to power 4. For single axle, it is load on axle divided by 65 raised to power 4. So let us say if I stopped this vehicle and calculated the wheel load, I found that the axle load in front wheel below front axle is around 55 kilonewton. For this tandem axle, the load is around 256 kilonewton, and for this it is around 195 kilonewton. So the load below these axles is given by or calculated as this. I want to see how many cumulative standard axle, or I want to convert this vehicle into standard axle. So I will do for first, let us say a value as for single axle, single wheel on both side. I use this combination. This is 55 by 65 raised to power 4, or let us say this B. For B, it is 256 divided by this is 224. You can see here 224 combination giving you 4 raised to power 4, and this is C as 195, the actual axle load, and this is the standard axle load for this condition by 4. Let us calculate the values. Zero 0.51, 1.71, This 0.7576 in right. Let's add these up. We are getting a value of 2.97 or 98. So what we are getting here, we have this combination giving an effect of around 3 standard axles. So this combination, this load combination is giving an effect of 3 standard axle. If this vehicle passes through the road, we'll count it as 3 standard axle. So this is how we can convert, or we can use this PDF value. This is also a very important calculation for your GATE examination. This may be directly asked in GATE examination. So you should remember this. Then the survey which should be done in order to check the axle load, or how should we convert the different axle load into the cumulative standard axle. We cannot check each and every vehicle, so we take around 20% of the vehicle. If the vehicle, daily commercial vehicle per day, is less than 3000, if it is between 3000 to 6000, we should take around 50%, 15% of these vehicles for measurement of load or for surveying. And if it is more than 6000, we can take 10% of the vehicle out of this for surveying. Next important term is your lane distribution factor. We know that the total number of vehicles which are calculating is, if it is not a divided highway, we calculate the total number of vehicles running in both directions. But at a particular lane, let us say it is a undivided 4-lane road, single carriageway 4-lane road. So if I count total number of vehicles as 500, I cannot say the 500 vehicles will be passing through this same lane. There will be less number of vehicles in this lane. So in order to differentiate or see the impact of these total number of vehicles on each lane, what we do, we divide these vehicles, or we divide the vehicles into the lanes and take out the maximum value using the lane distribution factor. So distribution of commercial traffic in each direction and in each lane is required for determining the total equivalent standard axle load application to be considered in the design. Because if I see this pavement to be failed, I cannot say 500 vehicle will be passing through this vehicle, this lane. So in order to do this, we use some factors for different road combination. For single lane road, if single lane road, there is no demarcation, all the vehicles are running in both direction from through the same lane, so we will take 100% of the vehicle, or the lane distribution factor will be equal to 1. For 2-lane single carriageway road, means there are 2 lanes but the carriageway is not divided, so we'll take 75% or 0.75 for both direction or of both direction traffic. Then for 4-lane road with single carriageway, means you have 2 lanes of each, but the carriageway is not divided, so we can take 40% of this both directional traffic. Now for divided carriageways, for let us say a carriageway having total 4 roads, 2 lanes in each direction, the value will be 0.75 out of single maximum directional traffic. If it is a divided lane, then single directional traffic is factorized between, or it is distributed between the two lanes. So this is how you can calculate the total number of vehicles by distributing it into different lanes. So from various parameters, we conclude the total number of standard axles in million standard axle through this formula. What we are doing, we initially calculated A. A is traffic at start of design period. So this is the traffic count. Traffic census. This X value is the time taken between census and start of design period. So it is the duration between the start of your design period. Means if you have designed this road for 15 years, so I can mark the first day of the new road as the start of design period. Now this traffic is increased for n, means for 15 years for design life. We may say this is the design life 15 years at a rate of r. This A value is increased. This is the daily traffic AADT. That's why we are multiplying it by 365 to calculate the total number of standard axles. This A value is the standard axle, but we distribute it using lane distribution factor, and we convert the total number of cumulative axles into standard axles using the vehicle damage factor. So this is the very important formula which is asked many times in GATE examination. Calculate the final standard axles. You can use formula to calculate the standard axles. So this is the n number. This is the value 1. Through your mechanistic approach, you have calculated the life of this vehicle or life of this payment in terms of number of vehicles. Now what you want to see whether these many number of vehicles can be allowed with safe structural characteristics. Means if we see the structure, there may be two important failure criteria. We are going to discuss it later. So let us start with how these criteria are calculated. The fatigue criteria and rutting criteria. These are the two major criteria which are responsible for your payment failure. And we will calculate the number of vehicles which will cause a particular fatigue value or a particular rutting value which may be quoted as a failure. If that value, those number of vehicle is more than the number of vehicle after the design period, then we are okay. So let us calculate using different parameters out of your structure or out of your layers. First is your CBR. CBR value, California bearing ratio, which we have already discussed in the first lecture of your payment material, is calculated at a density of around 97% of your laboratory dry density, which is done under heavy compaction. This is done using a Proctor test. So we calculate the CBR percentage. The minimum CBR for a traffic of 450 commercial vehicles per day is 8%. So if the vehicle count is more than this or around this, we will take 8% as minimum CBR. The CBR can also be determined using the dynamic cone penetration test with a cone of 60 degree. The formula is given here. The laboratory based CBR value is calculated as we have already discussed. This laboratory based CBR value should be calculated at 4 days soaking because it gives you worst moisture conditions. Where there is significant difference between CBRs of selected subgrade and embankment soils. Embankment soils means the soil below 500 mm thickness of your subgrade. The subgrade is the compacted soil layers of about 500 mm. If there is significant difference, then the effective CBR, the collective CBR, is calculated using this graph. These charts are given for CBR value of your subgrade below 500 mm, and the x-axis give you the compacted boro material of around 500 mm. Using these two values, these two charts, or let us say CBR for a borrowed material of 500 mm, if the CBR of compacted subgrade below 500 mm is 3, this can be calculated. These values can give you the effective CBR of the subgrade. So we have a value of effective CBR of subgrade. This has a combination of 500 mm compacted material and the material which is below 500 mm. So effective CBR can be calculated. This effective CBR will be used to calculate the resilient modulus. What is resilient modulus? This tells you about the elastic behavior of the pavement material. Different pavement material will have different resilient modulus, and this value is given for subgrade soil. For granular subbase, we have a different calculation for resilient modulus. You need not to remember everything, but resilient modulus is an input in order to calculate the strain value at different levels the pavement, which will be done by IIT PAVE. We are going to discuss it. So these parameters we are calculating, these are the input values which will give us the strains, the stresses, the deflection at different layers. So this is the resilient modulus which gives us the elastic behavior. Now looking at this diagram, there are different layers. The critical point are taken as below the center of one wheel and exactly between these two wheels. These are the critical layers, and these 2 points or these two are calculated at these two different levels. What is this? This is the here we are going to check for tensile strain. This is bottom of bituminous layer, and this point we will check for compressive strain. This is top of your subgrade layer. So the tensile strain and the compressive strain are responsible for your fatigue and rutting failure. If you have compression, then this tire will get depressed, and this is known as rutting. If there is a deflection or unrecoverable damage in terms of depth, then this is because of settlement due to this compressive strain. So this is giving you rutting behavior. If because of this tensile stress just below the bottom of your bituminous layer there are cracks, and these cracks percolates to the surface, if the cracks at these level percolates to the surface and these cracks are visible on more than area 20%, then it is considered as a rutting failure. So we want to check for rutting failure or for this is fatigue failure. If these cracks are moving up, this is fatigue failure, and if there is a depression below the wheel path, this is known as rutting failure. So we are going to check for these two structural failures, and to keep these failures in check, we will calculate the strain value for compressive and tensile strain at these levels. This is the depth, this is the radius. So at these depths and these radius, we will calculate the tensile strain using IIT PAVE. We will use IIT PAVE software to calculate strains, the tensile strain and the compressive strain in this layer, with having input values as resilient modulus, the Poisson's ratio, the contact pressure, the number of lanes, the number of layers. So all these values are input values for IIT PAVE. And finally, what you get, you'll get deflections, stresses, pains at the desired levels in this pavement. So using these strain value, we will calculate, using these strain values, the tensile strain and the compressive strains, we will calculate, using this tensile strain, we will calculate the number of vehicles which will give the fatigue life in terms of number of standard axles. You have NF, the fatigue life for number of standard axles. There are two equations. This MR is your resilient modulus for bituminous layer. These two equations gives you 80% reliability and 90% reliability. This means on a desired area, not more than 20% area will be affected by cracks. This means not more than 10% area will be affected by cracks. This is what it is mean by 90% reliability. So this is how you calculate the number of vehicles which will cause desired cracks due to fatigue failure. There is another. You need not to remember these equations. You should be able to understand what I am telling you, that the fatigue failure and rating failure are kind of checks which we provide for the number of cumulative standard axles which we have calculated using the mechanistic approach. So here, if you want to consider the effect of bitumen and air voids, you can use this C constant. The C constant can be calculated as C equals to m raised 10 raised per m, and m involves the volume of bitumen and air in the mix. If we are calculating NF, the fatigue life for traffic less than 330 MSA, then we can use the equation A, just given here, your equation A. If we are using for traffic more than 30 MSA, we can use, or it is recommended to use this equation. This is the number of vehicles which will cause fatigue. Then we want to calculate the number of vehicles which will cause desired rating. Rating is the depression or deformation of subgrade which will propagate to the topmost layer. So rating is the permanent deformation in the pavement which usually occurs longitudinal along the wheel path. The deformation in subgrade or non-bituminous layer causes the propagation of this depression on the top. The limiting value is 20 mm depression. Means if you having this road, you're having this depression below the wheel path. This you have already seen on many roads while you are traveling on highways. This depression is visible, but it is usually not more than 20 mm. Where it is more than 20 mm, the rehabilitation of the pavement is required. So for 30 MSA, the limiting value is 20 mm in 20% length of the pavement. And for traffic more than 30 MSA, it is desirable to have only 10% area affected by the rating of 20 mm. So Post these values, we consider the payment to be failed or the serviceability is over. So we calculate the number of vehicle for rating criteria, means the number of vehicle which may cause this much strain, this much vertical strain at the lowermost subgrade layer. So these values are calculated in IIT PAVE software and are used here to calculate the number of vehicles used for rating. So if these values we have calculated, the n value here, nf for fatigue check and nr for rating check, if your n value is more than any of your nf or nr, this is a failure, means you have to redesign. But if your n value comes out to be less than nf or nr, this means your payment will be serviceable in your service life without any rutting or fatigue failure. Now, if the number of cumulative standard axles you have already found, you can calculate the thickness of layers using these charts given in IRC 37 2018. These charts, there are many charts provided for a different CBR percentage with different type of layer like surface course, binder course or base course. This is granular sub base. So these are the different layer. There may be some cement treated base or any other layer which can be used. So you can find the thickness and this is the design. So these are the various combinations which you can find. You can find granular sub base or granular base, cement treated bases, sub bases with aggregate layers. You can have the wrap aggregate, reclaimed asphalt, pavement aggregates over your cemented subgrade. You may have a cemented subgrade with a granular sub base. So these are the combination which can be used and which the thickness of those layers can be determined using these charts provided in your IRC 37. So this is all about the design of flexible payment. Everything, every equations are not desirable to be remembered, but the basic behind the design should be remembered, that the traffic is calculated using a mechanistic and empirical. The design is calculated using a mechanistic and empirical design. In mechanistic way, we calculate the number of vehicle which passes through a design life using the lane distribution and the vehicle damage factors, and then in empirical way we provide checks in order to find out the number of vehicles which may cause fatigue or rutting, and then comparing this, if we find the vehicle which moving on the road are safer, we may go with the calculation of the thickness of different layers using your code. So this is all about the flexible payment design. In next lecture, we'll talk about rigid payment design. Thank you so much.